Let's talk the latest short picks from Ben Axler, the founder and chief investment officer at Spruce Point Capital Management. Ben, you just published two new sell recommendations, strong sell reports on American Battery Metals, ticker ABML, and Comstock Mining, ticker LODE. So both these responding to your report as they've slipped a little here this morning. Let's start with LODE, Comstock Mining. Now, I think both these are a little overlooked. Smaller stocks. I mean, this one's very small. American Battery Metals a little bit bigger. So let's actually start there. Let's start with American Battery Metals, all right? This is one of these companies that it purports to have a big addressable market cap ahead of it because of all the batteries, electric vehicles are going to need recycling, et cetera. How come you don't like it?
Well, we don't like it for a number of reasons. Number one, the management team has a track record of capital destruction. And if you look at their biographies, they obscure a lot of their past failures and linkages to SEC charge fraud. So let's look at, number one, the people behind it. They don't have any institutional investors. The one that we did find, Tizdaco Partners, we linked to a FINRA-banned broker. The company has rapidly escalating the number of consultants and paid promoters it has. It's a retail-driven stock, and you have to look at the people. If this were really a business that had $1.5 billion market value with $300 million of revenue potential, don't you think there would be institutional investors here lining up? Management's put no money in the company. They're granting themselves stock because they have no cash. They have a going concern. And this is going to be a classic scheme where by the time investors realize this company will never hit its lofty revenue and profit projections, that insiders will have cashed out and the stock will be back to 10 cents, which is exactly where the CEO is selling before the big run-up.
I don't know about institutional investors, Ben, I can't answer for them, but I will say that the U.S. Department of Energy Advanced Manufacturing Office has selected them for a $4.5 million grant. So is there a lack of due diligence going on by the government?
Yeah, big deal. Actually, we have a slide on that in our report. If you look carefully at that press release, there was another company that also got a co-partner on that award as well. And why didn't ABML put that in the press release? They made it sound like they're getting all the credit when in fact it's a co-award. So again, you need to look carefully at what the company's saying and doing. They've put out press releases before about raising capital, particularly one we noted in the report from an entity in Fiji. Fiji, of all places. Again, if this were a company with a great domestic progress, why can't they raise local capital from people in the community? Ultimately, that Fiji entity reneged on the capital, and that CEO, his company went dark, and now he's involved with Comstock Mining. So these companies are intricately linked by people that have a very speculative track record.
Okay, so when you say that, you got to back it up, Ben. When you say a track record that you think here is not good, and the connection between leadership at ABML and this other stock, Comstock, what's the linkage and what's the evidence that anyone here has a checkered past?
Well, there's a clear linkage, which just blows my mind. If you look carefully, the chief resource officer, Mr. Scott Jolkover at ABML, he is also a consultant to Comstock Mining, okay? Is this a conflict of interest or am I nuts? Comstock Mining also announced its intention to get into the recycling of EV batteries. They formed an entity called Linico. So why is one individual consulting and working for two companies in the same business? Now, we did an extensive background check on Mr. Jolkover. We believe he's related to Jeff Jolkover, who pled guilty to securities fraud, money laundering, and wire fraud. In addition, Mr. Jolkover, seems to have other side businesses. We've again done a deep dive on him. He owns a brothel in Nevada. Well, that's fine. It's perfectly legal business there. But this is a company talking about an uplisting to a major exchange like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. How's it going to look when they have an executive who has an interest in a brothel?
Okay, so one executive has a business that someone may or may not be a fan of, but the actual history of real wrongdoing is possibly a relative, right? I mean, this is, Ben, I see the point here that you're drawing, but what's the actual evidence that these two companies, because that's the important part here as you look at Comstock's connection to American Battery. Are you alleging that they are doing something that is inflating the numbers, that are acting as some sort of either fraud or a real kind of demonstrable connection, or is it just you don't think this guy is a good executive and he's involved in both companies?
Well, let's be clear, they have no real numbers. These are very speculative businesses. Management's tossing out big numbers of their ability to claim revenues in a nascent industry that we believe is immature. Okay, so let's talk about recycling of EV batteries. Okay, there is no national infrastructure set up so that this company can get enough batteries to meet its revenue potential. The company hasn't even disclosed who its customers are. It doesn't have a permit. There's no it doesn't have environmental permits yet in Nevada. The land isn't even entitled yet. So there's so much business risk here, and yet management is making claims, very aggressive claims, that they're almost done their permitting process. We did a FOIA with the city of Fernley, Nevada, and we show investors point blank that they're nowhere near getting their permits. So again, this is a trust me story, okay, of two companies in a nascent industry that is yet to be proven commercially viable, okay, where insiders have put no money up. They've partnered with a lot of people with checkered past, and they'll have the opportunity to sell stock well before investors learn that this business never lives up to its potential.
Ben, we reached out to companies, no comment yet. Just to be clear, obviously you're short. That's what you do. You are a short investor. Can you just give me an idea, sort of the plan you have here? I mean, is there a price target for ABML in particular? I mean, LODE is such a small company. I mean, we're talking, you know, $4, $2 for both of these. But is there a clear exit point or a strategy that you have you think ABML is worth?
Yeah, I think it's worth probably 5 or 10 cents. I mean, again, that's if you look at where the CEO was selling stock prior to the investor, run up and enthusiasm for EV batteries, that's where he's selling stock. I mean, even if you take its numbers at face value, let's assume that they can hit $200 million of revenue, and you look at what a multiple, of a business in the battery supply chain would be, that would be 2.5 times revenue. I mean, best case, you still have 75% downside. The company hasn't articulated how it's going to fund this project. They have an open shelf. They're going to need to dilute investors, particularly if they want an uplisting. They have negative net worth. That means to get positive net worth, they're going to need to raise capital. And so I wouldn't want to own this stock with so many uncertainties, with a management team that has destroyed tremendous amount of value in the past, that hasn't fully disclosed it on its biography. To me, I'm all about investing in transparent management team with a winning track record. I don't see that at either LODE or ABML.
Okay. Ben, thanks for the update here and breaking the news. I appreciate always the insight into what you're looking at. Always very interesting. Thank you, Ben Axler.
Thank you.
Joining us from Spruce Point, of course, short, and we haven't heard back from the company. He's the founder and chief investment officer at Spruce Point Capital Management.